I just know that I've been called to empower women, empower girls and women to take their health seriously. And I just know that, I can't let my corporate job, suck the life out of me that I have from 9 to 5, right? I enjoy working on Daughter 534. And for me, it's not even, I know when people say, like, if you find something you do, it's not work because you love it so much. And I truly feel like that when it comes to Daughter 534. Like, this is my baby.
Welcome back to the Leaving a Rich Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Rich, and this podcast is more than just a conversation. It's a love letter to my younger self. In this space, we bring forward the conversations that we don't often talk about in the Black and Brown communities. It's about healing, wholeness, self worth, and choosing ourselves without guilt. In our I Choose Me series, we're spotlighting guests who are courageously writing their stories. Individuals who are doing the deep, necessary work to prioritize their peace, their purpose, and their power. Today's guest is a woman walking in that purpose with grace and fire. I'm honored to be joined by Sophia, founder of Daughter 534, a faith based, holistic brand helping women experience better periods by breaking cycles of pain, shame, and silence head on. Her work is inspired by the woman in Mark 534, and her story is one of deep healing, bold faith, and unwavering advocacy. Sophia, I am so grateful to have you here today. This conversation is going to be a lifeline for so many women. So thank you for being here.
Jessica, I'm so excited to be on your podcast. Thank you for having me.
So the first thing, yeah, well, yes, absolutely. Thank you. So grateful to have you here. The first thing I would like to discuss, and we're just going to jump right in. For those who are just getting to know you, who is Sophia?
Yeah, so I would say I am a daughter of the Most High. I'm a sister, an auntie, a friend. I hold a master's degree in public health, and I'm a hematology lab technologist by training. And for those that don't know, hematology is the study of blood. And last but not least, I'm the founder and CEO of Daughter 534.
Right. So, thinking about you finding and discovering this purpose to found Daughter 534 to help women have better periods through this faith based and holistic approach. So, what was the pivotal moment that made you say, you know what, I'm going to choose me, however that looked like for you, and commit to your healing journey that brought you to 534?
Yeah, so the moment where I decided to choose me was when I realized I was struggling severely with my period, and I realized it was only getting worse each month. I couldn't just keep ignoring the signs anymore. I had, really bad back pain, bad cramps, large blood clots. I was vomiting, all the things, and then even bleeding out heavily during my sleep, that it would wake me up in the night and I realized it was just getting out of control. So I finally decided to look into natural remedies that I could actually afford and it wouldn't be so harsh on my body. And I knew that I deserved better. So I started seeing an integrative medicine doctor. And since I know my body best, I made it a priority to commit to my healing journey and explore different options like herbal medicine that would heal me long term and not just cover up the issue.
So some of the symptoms that you experience, I feel like I hear that from a lot of women,
Hmm.
within different age ranges, like, that time of the month is just not a great experience. And I
Right.
do feel like, as women, we're it's almost like you're expected to deal with it, right? It's supposed to be painful, it's supposed to be
Mhm.
uncomfortable. It's a part of being a woman. So, what's one myth or misconception about our cycle that you're working to specifically to break?
Yeah, I love that you said that because I'm working to break the myth that painful periods are not normal. And I say that all the time. Like everyone thinks they're normal. You just have your PMS, your cramps, you have cramps, you're in bed all day, but it's not normal, although it is very common. And that's two very different things when we really think about it. Um, I'd say if you're having pressure, okay, that might be a little normal if you have some discomfort. but not intense pain. And, when you have intense pain, it's a sign that your body needs some kind of help. And I always say that your period is like a fifth vital sign, right? Like you have your temperature, your heart rate, respirations, your blood pressure. But what about the period? As a woman, your period is your fifth vital sign. So I'm actively trying to break the myth that, periods are painful because they're not and they shouldn't be.
During your own personal journey of, symptoms, experiencing a lot of pain, and you coming to this place where like I need to do something where it's natural, it's affordable, and it brought you to daughter 534. But at any point did you have to be an advocate for yourself? I know one thing that in the black and brown community that we talk about a lot is not always being taken serious about some of the symptoms that we experience. So did you ever personally have to experience that where you had to be an advocate for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. For example, with my period, I told my doctor at the time that I was bleeding heavily during my periods and I was doubling up on menstrual products. For example, I would use both a tampon and pad to go to bed. And she's like, "Yeah, you're just a heavy bleeder. I'll write you a prescription for ibuprofen." And it sounds crazy, but I was taking like 600 to 800 milligrams of ibuprofen for years during my period where I had to take it every 4 to 6 hours. And even then, I felt like the pain was still there. So I definitely had to advocate for myself. And needless to say, I got rid of that doctor and I found one who acknowledges what I'm saying and doesn't just dismiss my concerns. So I'm really grateful for that. And I think the thing is, when you start to advocate for yourself, don't stop. If you feel like you're being, medically gaslit, you need to go somewhere else where you're being heard. So I've definitely experienced it, but always speak up for yourself.
I think that is so important that you talked about being medically gaslit. You and I kind of had this conversation when we connected, but I too had to walk away from my gynecologist. I had at that point, I think I had been going to her for like 8 or 9 years,
Wow.
and I had built a relationship with her,
Mhm.
and she looked like me. And so I think I had very high expectations and really
Right,
did not want to walk away, but because I did not feel seen and heard, and I don't feel like the pain that I was experiencing was taken seriously,
mhm,
I had to walk away. And so I think it's so important for the listeners to understand that it can be at the beginning stages of, you going to a specific doctor, or it could be later. But at any
right,
point, you don't want to take it lightly when a medical professional is not taking what you say seriously or dismissing it.
exactly.
So let's talk about the name of your brand. It comes from the woman in Mark 534. Why did her story speak to you specifically? What was it that you connected with, and how does it continue to guide you with your mission of your company and brand?
Yeah, I love this question. So the woman in Mark chapter 5, verse 34, she was bleeding for 12 years. And most likely in those times, she was considered unclean and ostracized from society because of her condition. So I felt like her story really spoke to me because she didn't have many options left. But what she did have was her faith. And with her faith, she reached out and touched Jesus's hem and received healing immediately. And when he healed her, he turned around and he called her daughter in verse 34. Um, I don't want to give the whole story away because I know, the listeners are probably going to go read it, hopefully. But even though we don't know her actual name, the name that Jesus called her is the best thing to be known by. She's not just, that bleeding woman anymore. She's his daughter. And it just guides my mission because when she was healed, Jesus asked her to come forward, tell her story about her healing journey. And I feel just like her. Like I myself, I'm healed from having painful periods. I had to come forward and share my story like she did over 2,000 years ago. And I said to myself, if she can find healing, then I can too. So that story really spoke to me, and that's why it's called Daughter 534.
I know that you also work in corporate.
I do, yes.
So you work in corporate and then you have your brand. And so that can be a lot to balance and juggle, and you
It
are
is.
intentionally looking to pour into the community.
It is. It definitely is a lot. I just know that I've been called to empower women, empower girls and women to take their health seriously. And I just know that, I can't let my corporate job, suck the life out of me that I have from 9 to 5, right? I enjoy working on Daughter 534. And for me, it's not even, I know when people say like, if you find something you do, it's not work because you love it so much. And I truly feel like that when it comes to Daughter 534, like this is my baby.
So with that being said, like you are intentional about not letting your 9 to 5, just suck the energy out of you where you cannot pour into your brand. And from what I've gathered, you are a individual who pours into a lot of people. You're committed to the mission and really bringing forward this topic to women. And so I have to only imagine that that can be a lot to juggle at times. And I am a huge self care advocate. I'm all about taking care of yourself. I too was
Yes.
in corporate in my, running a business. So for you specifically, how do you prioritize self care, and not just self care in general, but during your cycle when you feel depleted? Is there anything that you specifically do during that time of month where you're intentional about self care?
Yeah, you know what, Jessica? I love this question. I prioritize self-care through daily prayer, listening to good music, taking walks, as well as just eating the right foods to nourish and energize my body. I do mostly eat anti-inflammatory foods, which are foods that can reduce inflammation in your body. And I just make sure I'm just staying in tune with myself. So that's part of my self-care routine.
I've heard just from medical professionals, just because like I have seasonal allergies, but I
Mhm.
have asthma, and I've heard medical professionals and others say like, be mindful of anti-inflammatory foods. And so can you just share what's the significance for you to be mindful of that?
Yeah, so when you're having anti-inflammatory foods, it will reduce the inflammation in your body, which also does affect your period. For example, if you're having sometimes a lot of spicy foods and fried foods, you might realize, hey, like my cramps are worse, you know? So that's why I always say, like, you have to nourish your body with the right things, whether you're on your period or not. It's a lifestyle, and some of those examples could be like leafy greens, like kale or spinach, eating berries, veggies, green tea. I love tea. I'm a tea lover. And even having dark chocolate too. I don't know if you love chocolate as much as I do, but I will gladly have that throughout my whole cycle. Um, so yeah.
I do like chocolate. I just have not gotten into the dark chocolate.
What? That's the
And I
best
know it's
kind.
better.
Yeah, that's the best kind. Let me guess, you like milk chocolate.
I do.
Ah, that's good too, though. I mean, I like all chocolate, but I feel like dark chocolate's the best.
That's interesting. So, I love that you are intentional about prioritizing self-care during that time of month, because I do think that, having something in place, and it sounds like your routine is really almost like a daily routine, just to
Mhm.
make sure that you're pouring into yourself. And so when I think about all the things that you are doing, 9 to 5, and then also building your brand in the community, when your purpose is rooted in service, it can be a lot, and you can overextend yourself. It's easy, and I'm speaking from personal experience. It's easy to
Mhm.
always say yes, and hard to say no. And then it's hard to sometimes just to like sit still, be still. And so what boundaries have you had to put in place so that you can prioritize Sophia, protect your peace, honor your body, and really stay focused on your mission?
You know what, Jessica? I love that you said that it's so easy to say yes and hard to say no, because I feel like that's a very important boundary that I'm trying to enforce is not saying yes so quickly. until I check my planner because I will be like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to do XYZ. And then I check my planner and I'm like, no, I can't even do that. Because me doing everything, I'll just get burnt out. So I try to make that, a boundary, just not saying yes so easily before I check in with myself first. Another boundary is each night I have my phone on do not disturb, and there are only a select group of, people that can get through because my sleep is definitely a priority. I do have a nighttime routine, and each night I just check in with myself and make sure I'm okay for the next day. So I would say those are the boundaries that I've had to put in place just to keep my peace.
I think that's great that you are intentional, you have a plan. That do not disturb on the phone is huge. I
Mm-hmm.
think that we're so connected to our phones that we don't realize how much time we spend on it, or how being so connected
Right.
can really like kind of suck out, change our energy and our mood. And so that nighttime shift is really important. Now you've come to a place where you're able to implement these things when it comes to prioritizing yourself, but that's not always taught. I know for me, I don't recall me specifically learning how to prioritize self care. And so when it comes to you choosing yourself and the work that you've done, I would assume that there has been some unlearning in the process. What's something that you had to let go of, whether that's culturally, spiritually, or emotionally, to really embrace your healing journey and make sure that Sophia is good?
Yeah. I would say that culturally, what I had to unlearn is that, well, I'll just start off by saying this. My family's from the Caribbean. So you don't tell everyone your business, like, especially about your health. We just don't do that. For example, I had to tell my doctor what was going on and just advocate for more tests and lab work because if I didn't speak up, I mean, I wouldn't be here today on your podcast talking about periods. So I think I had to unlearn silencing myself, and it worked out for the better. Um, so that's one thing culturally that I had to unlearn. And then I guess I'd say emotionally, I had to learn that it's okay to not be okay. If you cannot be your best every day, at least you showed up, and that's more than enough. Um, so yeah, those are a few things that I had to realize early on.
It's okay to not be okay. That is something that I've learned to not only accept, but be comfortable with sharing that with others and sharing that I'm not okay. And so for you, is are you at a place where you can comfortably say when you're not okay and you're not at your best, or is that something that you're still working towards?
I think I am there. Like, I will, if I can't do something, I can't. And I have learned that no is just, it's a complete answer. Like, I don't have to give an excuse as to why I can't do something and why I'm not okay. It's just, I just can't. Sorry, I'm unavailable, you know? And as hard as that might sound, sometimes you just don't need to over explain. You just need to know that, your choice, it's okay to have a choice and that choice be no.
Good. That's real good. So when you think about, you know, you being intentional about protecting your peace, your energy, and your body, what have you learned when both worlds are just asking a lot of you, right? Your brand, daughter 534, maybe there's something going on, you have a lunch, you're working on a new product, work is
Mhm.
super busy, not to mention family, friends, right? You add them in there. And so
Mhm.
what have you learned about being intentional about protecting your peace and your energy and your body?
Yeah, I have learned to just stop and rest. That's it. Just rest. Stop everything I'm doing and just lay down. I believe that rest is an act of resistance because in the world we live in, I feel like it's all about go, go, go. Obviously, I'm still in corporate. You were in corporate. So you know exactly what I mean. It's just go, go, go all the time. But at what point do we ever just rest? Um, sometimes my friends and family will even tell me to rest because they know how I get if I don't have the time to relax. So I've just learned to understand my needs and really just listen to my body and just slow down and rest.
Rest is so important, and as a full-time employee and a business owner, I think it's more important than ever because you are juggling two different occupations. You have your 9 to 5 and then your 5 to 9, which is what I like to call your
Mhm.
business. And so, you have to make sure that you're well rested and recharged to be able to pour into all of those buckets. I personally am a person that I learned years ago, and this is a conversation with a doctor. Like, she just told me straight up, you need 8 hours of sleep. Right? You're saying
Yeah,
you're tired and you're sluggish. And yes, some people can go 4 hours and 5 hours and 6 hours. That's not you. And so
right.
I've been very intentional to try to get those 8 hours. And just recently, I have been like 8:30, depending on what I'm doing. But by 9, like I'm sitting in bed, and I'm trying to position myself where I'm falling asleep by 10:30. But rest is so
Good.
important. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you covered that. So thinking about the woman who may be listening, it could be the woman that's experiencing it. It may be a mother or a father who has a daughter or someone they know experiencing it. But what's a question that you what's a question that you feel like women typically are not asked about their periods or their bodies during that time that medical professionals should be asking when it comes to making sure they're healthy or if they need some type of additional support or medication, additional testing. Do you think there's any specific questions they should be asking us?
Yeah, I think that when you go to your doctor's office, they should be asking you, do you like your period? Why and why not? Because I feel like a lot of times you'll get asked, when was your last period? And you give them the date and that's it, right? Or do you get your period? Yes, no. But asking if they like their period, I think it leaves room for a girl or a woman to tell their doctor, like, yes, I like my period and this is why, or no, I don't, and this is why. And I feel like it it will tell you the positives or the negatives, and it's a conversation starter. And honestly, Jessica, I didn't know that some people had no period pain and that they have smooth cycles. Because back then, I assumed everyone was on a struggle bus like me. So I think asking someone's thoughts surrounding their period, it's just important for awareness on how we're all different because we all have different needs. So I think it's a really important question.
Do you think there's anything specifically parents can do for the girls that have started their periods at a young age? And what I mean a young age, they're still in elementary school. So is there
Hmm.
something that questions they should be asking of the doctor or just being aware of, like being on the lookout for a child a girl that's younger and is a child?
Yeah, so questions that a parent should ask the doctor, they can ask their doctor for some resources, like educational resources, so that they can review and understand maybe the length of a period, right? Or the length of a regular cycle. What are the symptoms that are normal versus the ones that, maybe uh, the start of another problem, right? Because like I said, if your period is telling you a story, then you'll realize, okay, maybe heavy bleeding, this is not what it's supposed to be. There's something further. So I think as a parent that can ask the doctor for some resources, I think that's the number one thing you can do to even ask questions, so that you can educate yourself on periods and period health.
Okay, that's good. You are intentional about giving women a voice during that time of the month. And for those who feel like they've been silenced, And so, can you just kind of share how you go about doing that? I know that you have daughter 534, but is there
Mhm.
anything that you're doing to help those women who feel like they've been silenced or they are ashamed to speak up because they've attempted for so many years and no one took them seriously?
Yeah, so I mean, I made it a point to be reachable via email, DMs on Instagram, as well as through our free product consultation. Um, because I know how it feels. I remember, having these pains alone or going to appointments or ultrasounds alone, trying to figure out, what's going on and feeling like I didn't really have too many people to talk about it with, maybe just a handful. And I just got tired of it, of not talking about it. So in creating Daughter 534, I just wanted women to know that they'll get natural and organic products that are made with compassion and not judgment, because I've been there before and I know exactly how it feels when you feel like you can't really discuss your issues and it's just there's a period stigma. But at Daughter 534, we want to get rid of that, and it's okay to talk about what you're going through, because if you don't talk about the issues you're having with your period, how are you going to fix it, you know?
That part is true, right? You just continue to experience it if you don't speak up.
Hmm.
So you mentioned you offer these consultations for, just consultations for individuals who may have questions. And so you're providing that one-on-one support. But let's talk about the community and the community that you've built. So what has helped you build a safe space for women who are navigating period pain, shame, and journey to healing? When you think about on a larger scale, was there any individuals, resources? Who has been your support during this time?
Yeah, I think what helped me build a safe space is honestly my friends and family. I just have a really good support system, and I know that I can go to them and discuss what I'm going through with my health, and amongst other things. And I think just knowing that I have, you know, women around me to support, men and women around me, because there are some men who are, also interested in Daughter 534 because they have women in their lives who they want to help, right? So I think just having the right people in your space, it it makes a difference. It really does.
Happy that you mentioned men who may either have, a wife, a partner, or children, or daughter who is experiencing, a unhealthy period, a painful period, because although they don't have a period, but this is a conversation that absolutely can benefit them because it
Exactly.
is allowing them to be able to better support those individuals who are around them,
Hmm.
and who may be struggling, with this specifically.
Right.
Earlier, we kind of talked about like how do you practice self-care, and you have a routine, and this series is about, choosing you, which is intentional work and about pouring into yourself. So what does your day-to-day look like for Sophia? Not just as a founder of Daughter 534, because I do like to separate those hats, right?
Hmm.
To just say the woman, Sophia, just Sophia. So what does choosing you look like on a day-to-day basis? What kind of walk me through that when you think about that question?
Yeah, I would say choosing me looks like making decisions that align with my values. Like on a day-to-day basis, I will make sure I'm good. I will wake up, pray. I will make sure my house is in order. I will make my fresh juices with my juicer. Um, I might sit outside and just, get some vitamin D, hear the birds chirping, um, and just make sure I'm good before I start my day. And a lot of the times, well, because I'm a type A person, I tend to beat myself up, tend to beat myself up if I don't get things done as planned on my to-do list. But um, I just learned to give myself grace and compassion. And I know I'm not perfect, so choosing me every day just allows me to have a more fulfilling life.
I think it's very powerful that you've shared that you're at a place where you're giving yourself grace and that you are a person who can be hard on yourself when you don't get tasks completed or you don't, check off everything on your to-do list. In the season that I'm in, I have learned that, there is just this pressure from society for us to do all the things. And this is
Right.
how we experience burnout
Mm-hmm.
and, the anxiety. You have people who are talking about they're experiencing depression. And so a lot of it comes from just this expectation to do it all. And I was just telling someone last week that I started keeping a to-do list
Mm-hmm.
and I've been going through it and checking things off and like checking like, okay, what's priority that I need to get done? And even though the to-do list is growing, seeing all the check marks like feels really good. When I first
Right.
looked created the list, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got a lot to do. But I did it in chunks. Like I didn't try to get it all
Mhm.
done in a day. And I think
Right.
that that's a reminder for all of us. It's give yourself grace.
Yeah. And I love how you said that because, like I said, I'm a type A person, and if I don't complete the to-do list, I'm like, what is going on? But like you said, just do it in chunks. That's it. Like, and I also have a thing where I do like what's urgent versus what's important, So I kind of break it down even on that to-do list. And yeah, just give yourself grace, give yourself compassion.
And remembering for those listening, everything isn't important, right? And
Exactly.
so if it doesn't fall under urgent, doesn't mean everything else falls under important. That's not the case
Right,
as well.
right.
Yeah. Well, Sophia, I have to ask you this question. So you've done a lot of work on yourself. You're pouring into the community and you are really building a legacy and something where you can carry this forward in the future and for generations to come that will have an impact. And you have to be proud of yourself. I hope that you are.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, good, good. So if you could have a conversation with your younger self, what would you say to her?
I would tell her that her future is bright and that she should advocate for herself and not to be afraid of using her voice. Um, yeah, don't be afraid of using your voice and that it'll empower you, but it'll also empower others to advocate for themselves as well. So I think that's what I'd tell my younger self. Advocate for yourself.
And this is one of my favorite. This is like one of two favorite questions on the podcast because I think it is just so important to have a relationship with our younger self, to tap in, remind him or her we're good, or maybe there's some words of wisdom that maybe you felt like you did not receive, or maybe you're hanging on to your younger self on something that needs to be healed. And I think being able to have a conversation or write a letter can be a powerful form of healing. And so that's one of my favorite questions of the podcast.
Yeah, I love that question because a lot of times you don't really think about, hey, what would you say to your younger self? You just keep moving along in life, just, growing and growing. But sometimes you have to take a step back and look at who you were before and then see where you are today. So, yeah, I really love that question too. It really makes you think and just reflect.
It does. It really, really does. And so I asked you, I mentioned that you are building a legacy, right? And it's not only affecting you, it's going to affect the generation, after us. And so as you're building a legacy through Daughter 534, what does legacy mean to you? Um, how would you define that when you think about what you're doing?
I would say that legacy means, with Daughter 534, it means transforming lives on a holistic level for generations to come. Not just this generation now, but generations to come. And just, breaking the stigma surrounding periods and inspiring others to know that they're worthy enough to prioritize their wellness. So I think that's what it means to me.
Awesome. Well, I am super excited to see you continue to build your brand and your legacy. I have ordered some products. I'm hoping they should be here soon. And so super excited
Yeah.
to try them out for myself and experience them as I personally can relate to some of the symptoms that you mentioned earlier. And so, Sophia, you have just shared and poured into us a lot today. But is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners that we didn't get to talk about already?
I would just like to tell the listeners, please take care of yourself and listen to your body. That's the main thing, just to listen to your body. Um, yeah, and then I also want to just say thank you so much, Jessica, for having me here on your podcast. I really appreciate you, and thank you for supporting my brand. And please give me feedback on the products. I'm always open.
I love a brand that is open to feedback. I think that is so important. So I absolutely will. Sophia, do you have anything coming up that we can support, or how can we find you? How can we connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at daughter underscore 534. And then also the website is daughter534.com.
All right. Well, I will also include how they can connect with you in the caption of this podcast. So if you need some help with recapturing that, I will be sure to include those links so you can connect with Sophia, whether it's for yourself or a family member. I definitely want to do that. But Sophia, thank you so much for being a guest on the Leaving Rich Legacy podcast and just sharing your personal story and what you're doing to not only continue your healing journey, but the impact that you're making on the community.
Yes, Jessica, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
And as I'm thinking about this and Sophia and the listeners, I don't know if you can say the same, but this conversation was really powerful and absolutely necessary. So, Sophia, thank you for being a voice for the women who've been dismissed, misdiagnosed, and misunderstood. Through Daughter 534, you've turned your own healing journey into a safe haven for others, and that truly is legacy in motion. So, to every woman listening, your body is not broken, your pain is not imaginary, and your healing is holy. Whether you're navigating a painful cycle, unlearning what you were taught about your body, you're just learning to rest. This is your reminder that you get to choose you. We need more spaces like this where Black and Brown women and men can be seen, held, and restored. So let this episode be a reminder that choosing yourself is not selfish, it's revolutionary, and you should choose yourself every single day. If this podcast resonated with you, share it with someone who needs it. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with us on social media for more real, necessary conversations. Until next time, keep healing, keep choosing yourself, and never forget your legacy is being written with a yes to yourself every single day. I hope that you all have a good day, and we will see you on the next podcast. Bye.